In early May, millions of Americans may receive less tax refunds than expected. Or worse, their monthly SSDI benefits might be cut this very month. What's happening? Why would a loan from 10 or 20 years ago affect today's Social Security benefits? And this isn't just affecting a few individuals, it's impacting families, communities, and American society during economically uncertain times. In this video, based on official information, I'll analyze the complete picture so you not only understand what's happening but also know what to do before it's too late. May 2025. U.S. Department of Education officially resumes debt collection. What will happen to benefit recipients? Beginning May 2025, the U.S. Department of Education will officially resume collection of defaulted federal student loans after more than 4 years of suspension due to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to federal government information, this is not a sudden move but part of the budget regulation process established previously. The resumption of debt collection is deemed necessary to ensure financial transparency between federal agencies while helping reduce budget pressure for new student assistance programs. In a context where resources for social programs are under close scrutiny, the federal government prioritizes reestablishing financial order as a way to maintain long-term stability for the system. However, the resumption of debt collection also brings clear consequences, especially for individuals dependent on fixed income sources like SSDI or pensions. Under federal law and Treasury offset program regulations, agencies have the authority to recover debt by withholding federal tax refunds or deducting a portion of Social Security benefits. This can happen not only to those who borrowed and haven't fully repaid, but also to those unaware they still owe, because old records weren't updated or notifications weren't clear. According to the Department of Education, over 5 million borrowers are in default. Another 4 million are in the delinquent phase and haven't paid for 91 to 180 days. The department states that if these borrowers continue not to pay, nearly 25% of federal borrowers will default. This means millions of Americans face the risk of having their tax refunds, benefits, or other government assistance withheld, even when they're no longer directly connected to education from many years ago. With such large scale, the impact isn't limited to individual borrowers, but can spread to social support systems, community services, and the entire consumer market, which is sensitive to income fluctuations. When mentioning student loan debt, many think of recent graduates. But reality shows a different picture, one rarely mentioned but carrying significant weight. Older Americans still carrying student loan debt decades after graduation. According to data from the Education Data Initiative, borrowers aged 50 to 61 currently have the highest average student loan debt, up to $46,790. This age group should be preparing for retirement or achieving financial stability. But instead, they continue facing loan obligations sometimes alongside healthcare costs, supporting adult children, or themselves living on fixed incomes like SSDI or pensions. The situation is even more serious for those over 65. According to NPR statistics, nearly 40% of borrowers in this age group are in default, meaning they haven't been able to make payments for at least 270 days. For those living on Social Security benefits, this doesn't just cause financial worry, but leads to direct consequences: partial SSDI deductions, loss of tax refunds, or future income garnishment. Notably, this is no longer an isolated risk. When nearly half of borrowers at retirement age fall into default, it signals that the loan repayment system is creating financial pressure lasting throughout a person's lifetime. And in the context of rising medical costs and living expenses, the question arises: are we reclaiming loans or pushing millions of older Americans closer to instability? Student loan collection, budget solution, or new social burden? A deeper analysis of resuming student loan collection from May 2025 could be seen as a technical move, a way to ensure borrowers fulfill their financial obligations. But when placed in the context of federal budget under pressure to cut spending, this isn't simply debt collection but part of fiscal choices the government is forced to make. Amid intense congressional debates about the 2025 budget, some proposals have demanded cuts of up to $880 billion from Medicaid and other social support programs over 10 years. To avoid directly impacting programs benefiting tens of millions of people, the government is choosing what's currently considered an optimal solution: intensifying collection of old debts, including student loans, even those defaulted more than a decade ago. From a budget perspective, this is a logical calculation. But in real life, this decision is leaving widespread consequences not immediately visible to everyone. When an elderly person has their tax refund withheld or SSDI reduced, that shortfall doesn't disappear. It becomes a new burden for children, relatives, and communities. Families must reallocate budgets, sometimes skipping meals, delaying medication purchases, or using already thin savings. At churches, food banks, and community support centers, the number of people seeking help is increasing. Those who once contributed now become aid seekers. Community systems designed to withstand crisis periods are now becoming long-term emergency lifelines without additional resources. On a larger scale, domestic consumer spending is being pulled down as millions living on benefits are forced to cut even the most basic expenses. This chain reaction affects small businesses, local stores, and the pace of economic recovery after the pandemic. While the government views debt collection as a way to preserve essential programs like Medicare and SNAP, from a social perspective, the question is protecting today's budget inadvertently placing additional burdens on those least able to defend themselves? Debt collection may be necessary, but when the price isn't just a number but accumulated damage to families, communities, and the entire social consumption structure, the question is no longer about fiscal efficiency percentages, but whether we're trading too much for temporary balance. Be proactive before deductions occur. Steps you need to take today. For many, having tax refunds withheld or benefits reduced seems surprising, even unbelievable. But as the federal financial system gradually tightens to preserve the core elements of Social Security, the possibility of unexpected impacts becomes difficult to avoid. So, the most important thing now isn't reaction, but preparation. People can proactively protect themselves through practical steps, starting with checking their own or relatives' loan status. Logging into StudentAid.gov can help accurately determine if a loan still exists or is subject to collection. For those in default, contacting the loan servicer or default resolution group to request loan rehabilitation is a way to temporarily stop deductions and rebuild credit history. Simultaneously, if receiving SSDI or other benefits, monitoring Social Security accounts through my ssa.gov is essential. Any changes in payment amounts or deduction notices should be addressed early, as response processes have specific time limits. Delays could result in lost opportunities for adjustments or exemptions in certain special cases. Finally, equally important is sharing information. Not everyone knows how to access online portals or understand financial terms, especially the elderly. Helping relatives check loans, monitor benefit situations, or even reading and understanding a letter from SSA together may be a small action but carries great value. Because in a system undergoing partial adjustments, proactivity not only helps protect individual rights, but also reduces burdens shifting toward families and communities. Student loan collection may be a rational financial choice, but its impacts are spreading more widely and silently than we think. When benefits are affected, proactivity is no longer a choice, but necessary to maintain stability that is already fragile. Watch our next video to learn how to protect your rights before changes occur without prior notice.